the middle of our show, we'll take a break from the wonder of this guest to talk about our sponsor. But we're doing something different this
Oh, yeah?
episode. Yeah. I mean, like
Okay.
we're always talking about space, right? And
That's
astronomy.
kind of our thing. Yeah.
I feel like I didn't realize how much I loved science until I discovered astronomy, and then now I'm kind of like rapidly going back and being like, what other cool things can I learn about all the science? But that's the reason why. That's the reason why this week we have a very special guest joining us for the Nerd and the Scientist, a fellow nerd and a fellow scientist. We have Inna Osmolovsky, who is joining us also from right here in Sydney. Inna is a plant ecologist and recent PhD graduate.
Oh.
What? Not yet.
Well,
you've
submitted the thesis. You haven't done the ceremony.
No, that's for me.
On her website, it says March 25, she's submitting everything. So it is currently May.
It has happened.
So there you go.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. I mean, I know being in the middle of that journey myself, I know that it is quite a journey even just to get to submission. So huge congrats. It's been a long journey. I mean, you did your undergrad at Ben Gurion University in Israel, and then masters in Tel Aviv, and then now here in Sydney. How did you find yourself on the other side of the world, and how did you find yourself in plant ecology?
So how did I find myself in Australia? I really like deserts, and I looked at the map and I was like, where can I find the biggest desert? And it probably wasn't Australia. I mean, there are big deserts out there, but Australia is pretty desert-like. And so I really wanted to do research on deserts. And this is why I spent 3 of my years studying alpine plants in Australia, which is obviously not desert at all. So also like alpine plants on the flattest continent in the world is kind of fun.
Is it the flattest continent? Is Australia the flattest overall?
I think so. There are no earthquakes here at all, or maybe small ones, but like we're in the safe zone.
Not geologically.
Come to Australia.
Just awesome. Okay.
Besides the animals, the rock itself, the landscape will not try to kill you.
So the continent that's designed to kill you at least spares you the shaking. Okay.
Yeah, I didn't realize how flat Australia was. I grew up like doing little hikes around regional Victoria with my family, and I was like, Mount Dandenong, Mount this, Mount that. And then a former office mate that I had who loved mountain climbing, shout out Andre if you're listening, was like, I want to visit Australia, but I just prefer to go to places where I can actually do mountain hiking. I'm like, what? He said, yeah, no mountains in Australia. It's flat. And that was how, living outside of Australia, I was told by a non-Australian that my country is flat.
But very beautiful nonetheless.
Yes.
It is. Yes. So you said that you came here to study desert plants, which I didn't know were a thing, and you ended up studying alpine plants, which I also didn't know was a thing. So maybe to get us started, you can tell us a little bit about what plant ecology is.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe we'll start with ecology, because ecology is the relationship between living organisms and their environment and other organisms. So it could be plant with another plant with its soil, with, I don't know, the weather. Humans and plants can also be part of ecology. So things like urban ecology might be part of how ecology works. So plants and animals in the city. And plant ecology is this study, but mostly focusing on plants. And I study plants look, first of all, plants are cool. They're amazing. Let's acknowledge that. But I think they're also kind of easier to learn than animals, at least for me. I started my undergrad studying chameleons, which I love.
Mhm.
But for me, it was harder that like thinking of the ethics of handling an animal because you sort
Mm.
of like grasp it and then maybe you do some tests. And obviously, it is very important. But I was kind of, for me, it was harder. And so plants were the more natural, I would say, outlet to do that. And also, like the other organisms out there are microbes and fungi, and I don't think there are a lot of fungi people who study fungi, and microbes are too stinky for me. So plants were the thing, um, and so what was the question again? I'm sorry, I forgot.
It's fine. Yeah. Um, for
I
reference,
think
it's
you
relatively
answered it.
early in the morning here in Australia, and it's the end of the week, so I totally understand that. But you answered the question. I mean,
Yeah.
I didn't
Why
a
plant?
understand what plant
Doesn't want to
ecology
handle
was.
animals. Fungi is too smelly. Plants. She answered it.
Microbes are smelly.
Microbes. Microbes go.
Plants are
Sorry.
fun. Fungi are not fun guys. Yeah, no, it makes sense. I get it. Um,
Perfect.
and I think that's really interesting. Like this whole understand or desire to understand the way that the natural world works and the way that different parts of the natural world interact with one another. But also, I guess, trying to do that in a way that like aligns with what you enjoy doing, what makes sense to you ethically, and all that. That's super cool. Cool, Benjamin. Now you know what plant ecology is. Cool.
Done.
It's a whole new experience for us because, as mentioned, like we tend to stick to. Um, we've had some fantastic guests, and they've all been kind of space related,
Hmm.
or physics related, or maybe like general science communication related. But I think this is the first time that we've had someone who's like completely outside of our wheelhouse, and we have no idea what's going on. Um,
I
and I
actually
guess.
think that astronomy and ecology are kind of like thinking back into like, I don't know, prehistoric times. Like,
Mhm.
obviously, humans were always fascinated by the sky, but they were also fascinated by animals and plants around them. And I think like it's like in the basic part of it, like it's the things we see, and then like it's easy to be like, oh, it's interesting, or like this is food, this is not food, this is how I navigate the world. Like it's all very like realistic in a way. I don't know. So I don't know. Maybe there is a connection there.
I think there is. I think there's some ancient peoples who watched the stars to know when which seasons were coming, and those are the seasons they planted which plants, and those are the seasons when you harvested. And so there's your tie-in right there. See?
So basically, astronomy developed as a tool for ecologists. That's what I'm getting.
Yeah.
Yes.
No.
Well, ahead of you first.
And I think the other interesting thing about your work I mean, from what I've read and like conversations that we've had, is the whole connection between plant ecology and climate change.
Hmm.
Because, while people often talk about climate change, and it's difficult sometimes to represent numerical data and plots and figures in a way that people can relate to or understand, I feel like the plants are sending us a message, right? Um, so is there something about your work that you can kind of try to explain to people how we're seeing on different ecosystems those sorts of effects?
So like I think the two main responses I can think of when I'm thinking of plants or even animals is trying to adapt to climate change. So for example, suddenly there are more droughts or warmer environments, and then plants can evolve to withstand those things. And
Mhm.
the other way is to escape. So um, I can give two examples to represent each of them. So the first one is how a lot of plants are shifting their flowering to earlier seasons. So there is a wonderful record of Japanese sakura seasons from I think like the year 800 or something like that.
Oh, wow.
And it it's meticulous, it's wonderful, but you can see in the last maybe 50 years, the flowering has shifted by a week.
Oh wow.
So now they are flowering earlier. And it happened only in the last 100 years, when there were some shifts earlier, but it was pretty stable. So this is how plants are maybe responding and adapting, or trying to adapt to the changing climate. And the other way is escaping. So we see a lot of shifts of plants and animals to cooler climates, so towards the poles and to upper to like higher elevations. And like the classic example is so a lot of like polar and alpine environments have a tree line, so a line above which trees don't grow, and there are a lot of different reasons why they don't grow there. But there are a lot of evidence that those tree lines are shifting towards the north and the south, and also uphill. And you can see like photographic images of how those tree lines just shifted up or towards the poles. And this is the classic two examples I can give, I guess.
It's incredible.
It's kind of, I think it is kind of scary, like when you're looking at it, like it's not just, I mean, we have those, I don't know, pictures of like glaciers and how like they're melting, but
Hmm.
I guess, and it is also very scary, but I guess for me it's seeing those things that I maybe know more about, or like slightly more familiar with, and then like how they are changing. And it's happening very rapidly. So like I
Like how
think
fast?
even the environment where I grew up, like it wasn't the same environment where my parents grew up, because things are shifting and changing very, very quickly. Welcome to the Doomsday episode, everyone.
Yeah. We had
um,
another Doomsday episode. This is not our first. Graham
but
Lau told us aliens are coming. So shout out to Graham Lau.
Yeah, Graham, the astrobiologist. We definitely started that episode on a bit of a slightly depressing note, but I think there was definitely room for optimism throughout.
Funny.
Um,
We're 2 for 2 on Doomsday with biologists. Just saying.
don't invite us.
No, you guys are awesome. I was wondering if, speaking about how plants are moving north and south towards the poles and to higher altitudes because they're trying to find cooler environments. Um, Clearly, it's an important thing to note. Um, can What is one big reason that we could explain to the general populace of why plants really matter more than they might think?
I think,
Because we don't want to lose trees and other flowers and plants and stuff like that. So, how can we tell
well,
people that this is a serious thing?
I can maybe give two reasons. So the first reason is that plants. So I guess when I'm also thinking of ecology, I'm not just thinking of this one component, because it's sort of like a web or a chain link. Like you have those like interlocked relationships between plants and animals and fungi and microbes, and they're all interacting with each other and are creating those ecosystems that we see. Um, and when you take out one component or two components, or you just mess up the whole system very quickly, as is happening with climate change and also with how like we're losing habitats, it can bring to the collapse of the whole system. And this is important because despite many humans think themselves as maybe not animals or not plants, well, we are not plants, but I guess it's like we are very connected to our nature. The easiest way maybe is how we have positive feelings towards nature. So when we go out to nature, it's usually very positive and healing. And there are a lot of psychological studies of how nature is just beneficial to our psychology. Um, Another way is our pollinators, our food, our medicine is almost always derived from plants and animals. Um, the last reason is that trees are maybe the biggest lung of Earth. So if you are to lose trees, algae, other plants, we will have very polluted, maybe unlivable conditions. So we are very much part of nature, and losing or changing rapidly those components may be detrimental more to humans than to Earth itself. But like, despite what we want to think, we are very connected to, yeah, to Earth.
Yeah, we rely on Earth. I think
Yeah,
that
we
people
do.
often say like, "Yeah, we're here. We live here." People often like talk about this idea of like, save the Earth, save the Earth. The Earth will be fine, but it just won't be livable for us,
Yep.
Yes.
as you're saying, right? Um, yeah, cheerful.
I can maybe add a little bit cheer, because despite all of those doomsday predictions, we do see that nature is more resilient than what we think. So the first bit that I can say is I read a few different articles yesterday, and they're saying that the extinction rates currently are much lower than what we have predicted. Like, the biodiversity loss rates have been predicted to be higher, more rapid, and at least for now, we are seeing that they're slower than what was hypothesized. Um, and in my own research, I think that we also see that plants are just more resilient, or things are not happening in like this linear way of everything is shifting north, or everything is shifting its flowering season to earlier times. Like, we have a lot of variation, and we are creating inadvertently those new ecosystems that are functioning much differently than what we see, but we are not losing everything completely.
The nature's finding a way. Um, cool. That's somewhat encouraging. We will continue this in 1 second, but I wanted to pause to mention that today's episode is brought to you by Science Socks. Whether you're into Mars rovers, the James Webb Space Telescope, or just showing off your love for all things nerdy, Science Socks has the right stuff to add that dash of galactic flair to your life. Go to sciencesocks.com/nerd. That's sciencesocks.com/nerd to find the perfect wearables for scientists, engineers, nerds, and geeks. Science Socks, the only place in the galaxy for geeky socks and astronomical jewelry. It
Love it.
feels it feels only slightly forced, but like I also just love everything that they have.
Me
It's
too.
like got a direct line to the center of, I don't know whether my nerdiness is like in my heart or in my brain or in my soul. Um,
I love
but
it.
yes, I really do love this. I would never have like a paid sponsor that was something that I didn't agree with. But we got very lucky with Science Socks. That like I
We
actually
did.
I really like them.
I keep every time we bring them up, I just can't stop thinking about the umbrella with the JPL parachute umbrella. It's my favorite thing on their site. Even though they're Science Socks, my favorite thing is the umbrella.
Do you want to explain it for Inna? I'm not sure if you're familiar with the JPL umbrella.
When you might have seen it when the Perseverance rover landed on Mars, there's this big, beautiful white and red parachute that carried it down with a bunch of random red and white rectangles throughout the parachute. That was actually a code put in there by NASA's JPL department. And it said in hexadecimal code, it said
I
"Dare
think so.
mighty things." That's their slogan. And it had the coordinates of where their offices are. and it's fantastic. And people have put it on jackets and on skirts and on other items, and so they have, and it's a big round thing. So when you have this umbrella that opens up, this is big round umbrella, it has a print on it. I love it.
Sounds cool.
Yeah. Anyway, that was my favorite thing. Sorry to
Yeah.
elongate the commercial.
No, I asked. I feel like we mention it so often, and I guess for and for any other listeners who aren't familiar with it, that was a very nice and succinct explanation.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Benjamin, are there other things that you need explained to you by this wonderful plant ecologist while we have her with us today?
Ah, my goodness, I have a whole bunch of things.
So pop quiz.
Kavi has access to my notes. I have 50 questions.
Choose one.
Okay. Okay. Well, do you? It's a light and fun one to get us back into the whole conversation. Do you have a favorite underrated plant that deserves a little more acknowledgement?
I think plants are somewhat all underrated. So there is a term. It is addressed in science. It's called plant blindness. People tend to go for the cute, fluffy animals, less so for other animals. So like insects are fascinating and variable, but people are kind of like, oh, that's a bee, that's a bug, that's a cockroach, let's kill it, type of thing. And plants are even less so because like some plants are pretty, most are just green. And the lowest tier is the fungi, which are awesome, beautiful, but so also kind of are not enjoying the cute, fluffy PR, I guess. But my favorite plant, I mean, there are so many, right? Like, I think my favorite plant in the Australian Alps is called Asperula gunnii. Um, it's a tiny, tiny plant, so it's like very close to the ground. And I just, I don't know why, but I keep finding it every time I go and like into the field. Although like it's very tiny and inconspicuous, I'm just like, oh, that's Asperula, and it has like those tiny, tiny white flowers. And like I don't study it. It's not one of my, I guess, focus organisms, but I really, really like it because it just like catches my eye somehow. And so maybe I like it or maybe it likes me. I don't know. It just appears suddenly.
Awesome.
That's really sweet. I feel like most people, as you were saying, like can't really differentiate between plants at all. There are flowers, and they are a group. Are they red flowers? Are they white flowers? Whatever, we don't know. And then anything, as you were saying, that doesn't have flowers is just like it's a plant. It's green. Don't know. Don't care. And I feel like it's only maybe in the past couple of years of my life that I've actually been like, okay, that's a Sansevieria, that's a Monstera. I'm learning the Latin names. I'm giving them nicknames, and it's like it's so fascinating to understand the differences between them. And I guess it's kind of overlooked. They're all overlooked. We need to love our plants more. The other the other thing I wanted to ask you about, besides the science of plants, and this I guess relates to this point of like people being having plant blindness, like you were saying, is the outstanding work that you've been doing in outreach, like trying to communicate your research and about plants in general to the public. Was there something in particular that motivated you to do that? And has there been like any like top moments in your science outreach journey so far?
So I think I grew up, well, I was a nerdy kid. Surprise. You heard it first here. No, but I think my parents always set me in front of like educational nature documentaries. So like growing up, I just loved Jane Goodall. I loved Diane Fossey. So one was because she was killed, but she was studying gorillas. The other one was studying or is studying chimpanzees. And my favorite French guy, Jacques-Yves Cousteau, who was, the inventor of the aqualung.
Mhm.
But I loved them, and I loved how they communicated science, and I just enjoyed those stories so much. And obviously, I won't have a National Geographic show about me anytime soon, but I feel like it's just following those footsteps of those people is really, really beautiful. And I don't know, it was inspirational for me, and maybe I want to like interest someone else in science and like, oh, this is cool. The other thing is that I'm like a repressed theater kid. Um, I am very nervous about public speaking, but I do enjoy just the performance of it, and like the few minutes of just like standing there and everyone is listening to you is like terrifying but wonderful in the same at the same time. And I think the last reason is just the fact that like it's so important, right? Like science, climate change, biodiversity, everything is really, really important because this is something that keeps us going as a society in a lot of ways. And just making people aware of how important it is, and especially with how much misinformation we have about science, I think it's just important to show people that scientists are not just like those evil corporations who are just out there to get them and like just, I don't know, throw conspiracy theories everywhere. But it's just people who care about the world and want to make it better as much as possible. Um,
Beautiful.
and my highlight, so there is, it's a very small outreach for me. Like it's not like standing in front of a group of people, but it's a program called Letters to a Pre-Scientist. It's US based, and you get to write 4 letters to a high school or middle school kid just throughout one year. And you sort of tell them about your research and about your life. And the idea is to show people that science is kind of like scientists are humans and we also struggle. And um, like, I guess to humanize science, but also to show those kids that being a scientist is possible if they are interested in it. And my favorite moment was last year when I received a letter from my pre-scientist, and they said that like they are thinking of being a medical doctor and a volleyball player. Um, and like it was a very sweet moment. They were like in the 8th grade, and like just like this idea of suddenly having this cool and I don't know amazing future, which I think every kid should have. Like every kid should dream of, I don't know, going to the moon or being a volleyball player and a medical doctor. Like I think it's just, I don't know, giving those kids the hope that they might need and like just the inspiration to go and, I don't know, go after their dreams.
That's awesome.
It's beautiful. I really like that.
I have a couple young volleyball players here, so that makes me feel extra happy. When you do your science communication, you're talking with people. What is a plant behavior or adaptation that you share that just blows people's minds when they hear it?
So like a plant fun fact.
Sure, I love fun facts.
I guess my favorite plant fun fact is that in the tropics there are some plants that have like leaves that are shaped kind of like a pitcher, but not like I guess it's the same family as pineapple. So if you think of like the pineapple top, but just a little bit more rounded and like I guess dense, and those pitchers can collect water in them, and then they get really really tiny ecosystems inside those plants. So a lot of organisms just are born, live, and die in those tiny pitchers on those plants somewhere in the tropics. And it's so those tiny pools are called phytothelmatas. Phyto is plant, and I don't know what thelmata is. But just like I feel like it's a really, really interesting complex way of like how the ecosystem is so complex that something can just like live inside a plant all of its life, and it has all its need, and the plant is getting some nutrients from like pieces of poop and like like different kinds of animals who die there and decompose, and like it's just like this really beautiful circular ecosystem that is within a huge and much bigger ecosystem.
That's fantastic.
It's so cool. I've seen on like nature documentaries pitcher plants, and like I'd thought of them as kind of, I guess, kind of like Venus flytraps, which I'm sure I have the wrong idea about, but like, you know, they're catching bugs.
Oh no, those are, so I'm not talking about the carnivorous plants, which are also cool. But yeah, just plants that just have their organisms inside of them.
Non-carnivorous pitcher plants. Yeah, that concept of having an entire ecosystem within a single plant, it's like having a whole universe inside of a universe kind of thing. That's kind of wild. All right, I think we have time for one more question, and then we're going to do a lightning round. Benjamin, what is the burning question about plant ecology that kept you up last night?
Yeah. Blah, 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 blah.
Yeah, that's a fair point as well.
Yeah, I'm talking about right there. I had it written. I always have the one I want right in front of me, and then I lose my track, and it's all over the place. In all the plants that you've been studying and in the environments that you go to, I know evolution is a very slow process, but have you ever come across a plant that looks slightly different than its predecessors, and you possibly seeing some sort of new trait coming into existence?
So
That's
I
a
want to address maybe first
like,
that evolution is a slow process, and evolution can be a slow process, but it can be a very rapid process as well.
mhm.
And I think the easiest example is what we have seen with COVID viruses. So we are still having different strains every year or every, I don't know, 6 months or even fewer months, and this is an example of evolution because those viruses are co-evolving with us, with the treatments that we're having, and so evolution can happen very rapidly. It doesn't have to take millions of years to occur. But I guess I don't have like a plant that I visit every few years and I'm like, oh, what's going on? Like, how are you? But you can see that plants in different regions, so the same species, so the same plant, but in different parts of, of its distribution. So obviously, like you can think of the distribution of a plant as like a blob, for example. So you have the center of the blob where like maybe the plants are the happiest, or like this is like the optimum of where they are living, like this is the perfect climate. But you also have a lot of edges around this blob, and those edges might be facing different pressures than what is happening in the middle. So maybe in the middle you have like a lot of different plants, like plants, you have a lot of genetic diversity, but as you go to the edges you have less individuals. Maybe you have some genetic drift, so certain genes that are maybe like very rare in the like middle of the range are suddenly like becoming the dominant genes in the edge populations,
Mhm.
and and then they are facing different environments. Maybe some pollinators don't see them as much because there are less individuals, and so you can see a lot of different traits between the core of the population and the edge. And I'm sorry, I think I just dropped on you like five different terms that are kind of hard and need like different courses to explain. So I am sorry.
I
No, no,
think I
no.
followed along okay. That was
I
good.
think I followed, but there was one point there that you just kind of blew my mind, and I want to clarify something that maybe I'm completely wrong about and I misunderstood. So you're saying that when you have these uh, outliers that are genetically different in some way towards the edges of the population that have slightly different traits than like the average traits of the population, um, those outliers are less visited by pollinators sometimes, not always, right? um, is there a causal relationship there? Like, does the fact that you're less likely, or does the fact that you are less visited by a pollinator mean that there's less mixing of genes from the bulk of the population? Does that, if that makes sense? Or did I
Yes.
completely?
No, no, you actually you can do a PhD in ecology.
Another
Nice. Can I have my first, please, before you give it to me?
um,
Thank you.
so what is special about a lot of plants is that they can self-fertilize or self-pollinate. So a lot of plants have both the female and the male parts,
one.
and we just call it selfing, so self-fertilization. And a lot of plants are just, if there are no pollinators around, they're just like, sure, I just want to make offspring. I will just reproduce with myself.
Hmm.
And there were a lot of hypotheses that this is like causing like a lot of inbreeding and like maybe some like maladaptive genes and stuff like that, or like those plants will be much worse than like plants that are reproducing with each other. But actually, it's again in biology, it's not as simple as just like, oh, all those plants that are selfing are so much worse than plants that are not. We see that a lot of them in nature are very stable, are very happy, even like have genetic diversity still. um, but we do see that, I guess, if I'm going slightly to agriculture, where we see like a lot of those monocultures of the same plant that is self-reproducing, so I
Yeah.
guess the banana is maybe the most famous example. So they are not even pollinating anything; it's just like producing different banana plants from like tissue cultures. So not even like going into the seed stage, and we do see that this makes them more vulnerable to diseases. The Panama rot, is it called? I think so. So if I think maybe at the start of the 20th century, we had a different banana that was better, more wonderful, more tasty, called Gros
The
Michel.
Cavendish. Oh no.
No, so it was Gros Michel or Big Mike, I think. Um,
Big
but
Mike.
it was completely eradicated because of the Panama disease. So it's sort of a fungus that grows on the leaves, and this is why we started having Cavendish. But now the Panama disease has also adapted to the bananas, to the Cavendish bananas, and so we might be losing the Cavendish banana. So I guess when you have those monocultures in agriculture, it might be detrimental, but in nature, when where you don't have like those huge banana plantations or like the equivalent of them in other plants, it might be more complex.
So
Um,
we might lose just one kind of banana, but not all bananas.
yes, but it's harder to develop a tasty banana. So it's what humans like, right? Like there are a lot of
Ah,
banana species in the world, but not all of them are delicious as Gros Michel or as Cavendish.
that stinks. We're only going to lose one banana, but it's the one we need.
The one we like. Okay.
Ah, we think Kavi should head into questions and quibbles.
Yeah, questions and quibbles, rapid fire. Let's do
Okay,
it.
are you ready for our rapid fire questions? 11 questions that are really going to press hard on your noggin. All right, what is the weirdest thing that you believed as a kid?
Uh, I believed. Oh God, that's really hard. One second. I was really afraid of ghosts, like
Ooh,
to the point of insomnia, I guess.
Okay,
wow.
that's fair.
Okay. Yeah, that ghosts are scary. And as a kid, you don't know what is fictional content and what's real content that you're seeing. So, yeah, okay, that's fair.
Okay.
Slightly different style of question. What or which teacher would you say had the biggest positive impact on you?
So I had an English teacher, Mr. Moses, and he made us all talk in English, and he was really dedicated. Like he was the one teacher who would like return all of our exams works and like quizzes the day after we submitted them to him.
Oh, wow.
And he also made us think about what we like and are interested about in the world. And I think my two essays were about nature and ecology and biology, and I really very much think that that's because of Mr. Moses.
Oh,
Wow. Shout out Mr. Moses.
there you go. What is one scientific discovery that you wish you could have seen in person?
I wish I could be like somewhere with Darwin on the Beagle or with Alfred Wallace. Um, just to see like how their like wheels are turning and they're like suddenly, oh, this is how evolution works.
It's a good one.
If you had to pick one of them or one historical scientist in general to go bowling with, who would it be?
I feel like Jane Goodall is like, I feel like she would be really, really good at bowling. And I would, as someone who is not good at bowling, I would just sit there and be impressed by her skills.
That works. If you were a sandwich, what kind of sandwich would you be?
Oh, that's hard. Um, Bowling with Jane Goodall is easy, but um, I think maybe just like an egg salad sandwich.
Egg salad sandwich.
That could work.
I don't
I
think
like
we've
a
had
good
that
egg
before.
salad sandwich. Okay.
Sounds like an excellent idea. Sorry. I'm sorry.
No, that was the perfect place for it.
What is your most controversial opinion about pizza?
I do like pineapple on pizza. I don't know if it's controversial. I also eat it backwards. So I start from the crust and then I go um to
That's
the
more
like
controversial, I
triangle.
think, than the pineapple bit. You eat it backwards.
Yes.
Yeah. Is
Oh my
that
God,
something that you
they would
only
kick you out of New
started?
York if you did that.
Were you doing that before you moved to Australia, or
Yes.
you felt like you had to do things backwards once you got here?
No, it was like I think since I was a teenager.
Oh my God, that's
Wow.
awesome. Okay. What is your favorite scientific word or phrase?
I don't know. That's a hard one. Can I go with something generic as evolution? I don't know.
Sure.
Sure. Yeah.
There's no
You're the
wrong answer here.
scientist.
Evolution.
Okay. Yeah, evolution's a good one.
Sure.
What is the bad one? What's your least favorite scientific word or phrase?
P-value.
P-value.
What's p-value?
So, um,
I had to ask.
it's oh my god, it's in stats. So you're doing a statistic exam or test to see if two groups are different from each other significantly. And the math behind it is not something I can explain, not even when I'm fully awake and caffeinated. But so the value that you get for the separation of those two groups is called a p-value, and you know that two groups are different. In biology, it's 0.05. In other disciplines, it's a different number. I think in medicine, it's much lower. I just sometimes people just give it too much of an emphasis when they're thinking and talking about science.
Got it.
And I guess for context as well, like people talk also about p hacking, where it's an idea that you can mess around with your statistical analysis in such a way that the p value makes it seem like your results are more significant than they really are. Yeah, there was
It's also a problem because like a lot of scientists are afraid of null results or results that are not significant. But it's a big problem in science, because if you don't know that something doesn't work or something doesn't work the way that you expected, you're losing a lot of information if you're only publishing those studies where you have like those really beautiful, significant, like, oh, this works and we just proved it. So, yeah.
Okay. What is your favorite useless science fact?
They're all useful, aren't they? No.
That's fair. It's a fair response.
That's good. That's a good response. I'll take it.
All right, this one's, I guess, it's showing our biases towards space and astronomy. But if you could rename one planet in our solar system, what would you call it? It's tough. It's tough
It
getting
is tough.
plant ecologists.
Like, I feel like they're
questions.
all kind of perfect. Maybe, you know what? Let's change Jupiter into Athena or something.
Love it. Love it. And I guess just for the simplicity of it, if you remove one letter from planet, it becomes plant. So if you could rename one plant on
better.
Earth, yeah, what would you call it? Some new plant.
Well, plants are keep getting like discovered, different species. So like there is less possibility for me, but like a lot of possibility for different scientists to name new plants. So like I wouldn't rename an existing one, although like there are some ideas about renaming plants in like indigenous names and giving respect to like the history that was in a lot of countries and places before they were colonized. So maybe I would go that route. But if I would to name a new species, I would probably go like the fun, I don't know, naming it after someone route. I don't know, another David Attenborough plant. I think there are a lot of different species that are named after
A
him.
lot of things named after him. It's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
Well earned. Well earned. All right, last question. If you had to sing one karaoke song to save all of humanity from an alien invasion, what would it be?
Staying alive?
That was the fastest answer to that one ever. We're
That
going to
was
be just
perfect.
fine. The aliens come, I'm sending them your way. Perfect.
How have we not had that answer from any of our guests this season?
Or that fast. I think she's been ready.
Yeah.
Part of her morning routine is wake up, brush your teeth, make sure I know that song in case the aliens come, have coffee. That's her morning routine. She's ready to go.
I would
While
also
brushing your
not
teeth.
save.
It's a rhythm.
I would not save the Earth by singing, so don't worry about it. They would probably exterminate it faster just hearing me.
Well, I'm sure that our listeners don't feel that way. It's been such a pleasure having you on the show. Where can people find you if they want to follow your research or your outreach?
So I'm intermittently, never mind that word, on different social media. I'm on Blue Sky, I'm on Instagram, and I have my personal website. They're all called Inna Osmol. Um, I'm not too active there, but people are welcome to try and find me.
Or
And you,
otherwise, I
Kavi,
guess
where can people find you?
me. Oh, I'm in Sydney, but don't look for me. Um,
Okay.
you, folks can find me at Fun Fact Science on what remains of the social media landscape before it collapses. How about you, Benjamin?
That's just funny. You can find me under the name Science actually everywhere. On Facebook is the big one, but also uh, Facebook and Instagram and Twitter, I guess, if you want to go there. Uh, and Blue Sky and Mastodon and all the other things. And you can also find Kavi and I on TikTok and YouTube as well. And soon you'll be there too
Yes.
with us on TikTok. Enjoy.
You can watch old episodes and this episode, but you know that if you're hearing this
Mhm.
on YouTube. Listen to us on Spotify or Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, or anywhere where you find your podcast normally. This has been another wonderful episode of Science Actually Presents The Nerd and the Scientist. See you next time.
Bye.
Bye bye.